really been thinking about the huge advantage and brain development that comes from play-based learning, essentially. We've been kind of easing into it ever since we got back from Mongolia. And for me, the approach I've been taking, especially with these two, is one, really facilitating their interests. So I'm just paying attention to whatever it is they're interested in. And of course, that's also very easy because they're telling me or they're asking me for things. And for them, it's been doing, these are just examples of some of the things, is they've been doing lots of clay. So they've spent probably a week or more when we first got back, especially making clay things, right? That was it. And you would think, well, they're not learning anything. They're just sitting there making clay. But the research and the study I've done on child development, talking about what goes on in a child's brain when they do, first of all, make-believe play and then kind of creative play like that, there's so many neural connections being made that it's, in fact, I've even heard some people saying it is impossible for them to fully grow up and to become fully functioning adults without this type of play going on. So I'm starting with that because I want to re-emphasize how important it is for our kids to get that type of play. Like really, it is. So we should not discount that when we're thinking about, educating our kids. We have to realize that we need more space and time for that. We need to allow more space and time for that. We need to be okay with that going on because it really is very critical for their brain development. So, but then that also includes things like they like to do origami. My 7-year-old has been in this past couple of days in this kick on printing out Minecraft creatures that she can cut up and make out of paper. I don't know. She just was like, I want to make Minecraft people. I'm like, okay. I mean, she's played it sometime before, but they don't play it, but she's been making Minecraft people. Embroidery, cross stitching. I've even gotten my 13-year-old boy to do cross stitching. So if you find the right kind of stuff, that's great because it's also play-based and project-based. So especially with boys, I love to focus on the project-based learning, especially at these ages, I think. I mean, you can carry that on into the teenage years as well, but especially at these ages, project-based learning. My 13-year-old, we have animals here, and we bought this goat, and I guess the goat was really old and it died last week. And so my husband and my sons went out and they, especially because we just went to Mongolia and we saw this happen, we ate a goat for dinner and they like killed it and harvested it right in front of us. We saw the whole thing. And so our goat died and they were like, we're going to try it. We're going to go do it ourselves. So they did. And now my 13-year-old is working on trying to tan the hide of the goat. So that's been his project. He's been researching how to do it and all the steps he has to take and everything. And we also were trying to hang curtains in their room. And we found this sewing machine that came with the property. And so he spent a day trying to figure out how to use the sewing machine because one, it was older, and two, none of us have been around a sewing machine for a very long time. So what I'm trying to say here is we just have to look for those opportunities that are already happening all around us. Like I guarantee there's things like that happening. And if we pay attention to them and recognize that they're actually opportunities for learning, because in the past I would have been like annoyed by whatever thing and be like, this is interrupting our study time. You're not doing your math workbook or your curriculum that I bought because you're trying to figure out how to use this sewing machine. And now I switch that and I'm like, no, this is great. You're learning how to solve problems. You're learning how to find answers because you want to sew this curtain to hang it in your room. And in order to do that, you have to fix the sewing machine. And in order to do that, you've got to watch these videos. So it's a whole process. And now I view those types of things as an educational experience that in many ways can often be more valuable than just a simple curriculum because they have a reason they have a reason and a problem and they have to find a solution. And that is Like that's a real life skill, legitimately. And the more often we can have those types of opportunities for our kids, actually, the better off they're going to be. Even better than if all they did was workbooks and academics, right? Again, not discounting the importance of academics, but in my mind, there's always going to be time for academics. And when the child is ready, you can accomplish a lot more in less time because they're motivated to do it, as opposed to trying to force them to do it when they're driven or interested in doing other things. I mean, we've heard of interest-led learning, and to me, this is exactly how it plays out. They take an interest in something, whatever it is, clay, a sewing machine, a goat skin, Minecraft people, and you pursue that, you facilitate that as they develop skills from pursuing that thing that interests them. Wow, I feel like I'm talking a lot without Greg here. I'm just on and on and on. So hopefully that's enough on that. Oh, wait, you have a comment. Good, let me. Do I need to worry that he doesn't want to read or write? Okay, good question. It's a fight to get him to write 2 sentences. You know what? Normal, I think, for a 10-year-old, especially for a 10-year-old boy. Even my 13-year-old doesn't love to write. But here's the thing. Yes, writing is critically important. It is, but it comes with time, I think. I would honestly say that if I could, I would think that it was finally in teenage years when my children actually wanted to start writing. And I think that that's natural. I think I was in my 20s when I actually wanted to write. So I don't know that making them write is going to help them want to write. And ultimately, that's the goal. We want them to want to write, if that makes sense. And the best way to facilitate a desire for writing is, one, to have them listen to lots of books or read a lot of books, because that's the foundation of writing, right? Reading leads to writing. So the more they read, that's fantastic. And I'll talk about that in a second because you said he doesn't want to. But one thing I will encourage my kids to do, and I'll talk about this now because this is helpful, is I will encourage them to keep working on handwriting, because that's in one way that's teaching them and it's modeling writing for them, and it's just helping them to at least have the basic skills. So the things I do with, say, reading and handwriting, like I mentioned, is that I will have external motivators to encourage them to do those things every day. And what that looks like right now is, if my 13-year-old son or my 10-year-old or 7-year-old want to listen to an audiobook, a fun audiobook, because I'll talk about that in a second, they do listen to some for school, or they want to, I would let them watch a movie every night if they want, if it's in another language. So if it's in French or if it's in Portuguese, but they only get to watch the movie if they've done their studies. So if they've done their handwriting, if they've done their reading practice. And I call it reading practice. Okay, because like you said here, he loves to listen to books, just not to read them. And I'm like, great, listen to books. You can listen to lots of books as long as you do these things. But I want you to practice reading at least a few minutes every day, right? And so that's a part of his checklist. So I have these things that I also kind of present them as being optional, because I'm trying to teach them to be self-directed and self-motivated. So I make it like, hey, this is optional, but if you want to do these things, you have to do these things first. Completely optional, right? But if you want these things, you got to do these things. And here's the things: practicing reading, doing handwriting, doing some math, whatever, practicing an instrument, because I'm all about instrument. And if you do those things, then you get to listen to a fun audiobook, and then you get to watch a movie in French or Portuguese, and then you get to whatever. I mean, it can be whatever they're motivated by. And that's how I get them to do the things that I want them to do. And that could very well include the curriculum you have. Like maybe it includes handwriting practice or writing practice, whatever. So instead of forcing him to do that curriculum, you make it seem like optional, but he gets benefits, he gets privileges when he does it, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think I was going to say something else, but I forgot. But yeah, for me, that's basically how I do. There's not like tons of time. It's not like hours of reading and writing. There's a little bit every day. And I think the key ingredient here too, that helps them maintain that level of learning is they actively choose to do it. And they choose it themselves, because I'm never saying, okay, get out your handwriting books now and sit down and do your handwriting. I just let them do their thing. And they know that if they want to do the things that they'll ask me to do later, and it might take them a few days to get used to the system, but once they get it down, then they know. And then like, I don't even have to say anything to any of my kids, but I don't have to say anything to my younger kids. They just know if they want to do X, Y, and Z later, they have to choose to do the other things. So they decide when they do it, they decide where they do it, they decide how they do it. Sometimes my two younger girls literally wear rollerblades all day long. Like they wake up in the morning and they put on their rollerblades. This whole downstairs area is just tile. So they just rollerblade around. So they often are doing their handwriting and then rollerblading, and then they're reading something and then they're rollerblading, so they get to decide all of that. Like my 7-year-old, she likes to watch clay or origami things on YouTube or Pinterest, but she doesn't get to have that turned on. And I only turn it on at 15 minutes a time. Otherwise she gets lost watching some YouTube video for hours or an hour. But she only gets to have it on after she's done her handwriting and practiced her reading her Bob books. And then I still only do it 15 minutes at a time, so she's not, like gone forever, lost in something. So, yeah. And that is the reason I take an approach like this, because it does, like you're saying here, it takes off a lot of stress and pressure on me. That is my goal. Like, I don't want to be 100% responsible for their outcomes, because that's not life. Like, I'm trying to teach them responsibility and to be self-driven and self-motivated, because that's the most important skill that will carry them through adulthood. When they take responsibility, when they take initiative, when they decide when to do it and where to do it and how to do it, and they choose to do it because they want to receive the positive consequences, right? All that whole process right there is even more valuable to me than whether or not they actually do the math or science or reading.